do you mean by data? That is data management. So when it delegates the request to handler class, it processes the request, generates the result. The way it remembers the results and passes to what? View component. It comes under data or model. Model is nothing but data. Data is nothing but model. What do you mean by view management? After getting the results from handler class, passing to write view component by selecting the view component comes under what? View management. Super guys. Shall we? Instead of developing MVC plus front controller application by using what? Regular and normal technologies. Regular and what? Normal technologies. It's recommended to use what? Huh? It's recommended to take the support of what? Frameworks. Shall we start understanding how to work with those frameworks, guys? Okay, guys. Shall we start understanding how to deal with these frameworks, guys? Come on, I want reply, guys. Yeah. So what are the problems, right? Every layer we should develop. No ready-made front controller. We should remember and implement what? MVC principles. Like this, some headaches are there or not there. But if you go for frameworks, all those problems will be solved or not, guys. Tell me what are the MVC frameworks that are there in the market? Struts, JSF. Okay, next one, Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC, ADF, like this many frameworks are there. But right now, who is doing well? Spring Boot MVC is doing well, right guys? Okay, that's the point to be remembered. Fine, boss. Here is my paint, guys. File, open. Here is my paint, guys. File, open. There, what is there? In this place, Spring is there. Okay, in this place, Spring is there. 1102. This is my 1102. Spring Boot, MVC. Okay. I think yesterday we completed some document, not. Yeah. Yeah. Instead of developing web application using technologies, we should prefer working with what? Frameworks. Struts JSF, Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC, Tapestry, ADF, like this multiple frameworks are there or not there? Super. Okay. All these frameworks are based on MVC plus front controller or not, guys? All these frameworks are based on what? MVC plus front controller framework to develop what? Java web application. Right? Advantages of developing MVC web application using what? Java MVC frameworks, guys. Clear, my dear? These MVC frameworks give ready-made front controller servlet taking care of what logics? Multiple logics. In struts, what we got? Action servlet, JSF, faces servlet, Spring MVC, dispatcher servlet, Spring Boot MVC, dispatcher servlet, Spring Boot MVC is equal to Spring MVC plus plus. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on. Super, guys. After that, what is the next story, guys? Provides abstraction on servlet JSP technologies to simplify the development of what? MVC architecture based application. Flow of execution is fixed according to the logics placed in what? Front controller servlet. What developers need not to bother about what? Flow of execution, because ready-made front controller servlet take care of navigation part or not, guys? Super, guys. The predefined front controller contains logics already satisfying what? Rules and guidelines. So you need not to bother about implementing what? Rules and guidelines. Do I need to bother about implementing rules and guidelines manually? Super. Next one. Use good productivity in application development. Why? Because Big thing is front controller servlet, that is ready-made one. So remaining things only we need to develop. So we can do more work in less time or not, guys? We can definitely do more work in less time. What do you say, guys? It's possible or not possible? I want reply from you people. Come on, I want reply from you people. Come on, guys, come on. Dispatcher servlet of Spring MVC or what? Spring Boot MVC, guys. Yeah, tell me in Spring and Spring Boot MVC, who is front controller? Dispatcher servlet. It's a ready-made servlet or user-defined servlet? Yeah, it is a full package name is what? org dot spring framework dot web dot servlet dot dispatcher servlet. Available in which jar file? Available in which jar file, guys? Available in which jar file, guys? Come on. Spring hyphen web hyphen version dot jar. But do I need to add this jar manually, or if I add web starter it will come automatically? It will come automatically if I add the starter. Okay. Once we add Spring Boot starter web, we get lot of jars related to MVC module like Spring Web.jar, WebMVC.jar, and etc. In that, Spring Web.jar file contains what? Ready-made dispatcher servlet component as a front controller servlet component with the URL pattern slash. It is a ready-made one, automatically configured, automatically registered with container. First time in your life, you are seeing one predefined servlet. Predefined servlet having predefined configuration with slash URL pattern. URL pattern slash means what? It will trap and take all the requests and responses. It will trap and take all the requests and responses. Is that clear, my dear? I want reply, my dear. Come on. Super, guys. Okay. It is given as front controller servlet having ready-made navigation logics, control flow, view management logic, control view component, data management logic decides the data flow. Control of the flow decided, control the view components decided, decide the data management. Understanding, boss? In Spring MVC application, we need to configure explicitly with the servlet container. I'm talking about dispatcher servlet. I'm talking about what? Dispatch. All these points are related to dispatcher servlet. In Spring MVC, we have to configure explicitly, either in web.xml file, you have to configure either having extension match URL pattern or directory match URL pattern or slash URL pattern, because in Spring MVC it is not automatically registered with what? Container. But in Spring Boot MVC that headache is not there. Spring Boot MVC is what? Extension of Spring MVC. It is simplifying our job. What is that, guys? In Spring MVC, we need to configure explicitly with the servlet container having either directory match URL pattern or extension match URL pattern or global URL pattern. Okay. Manual work to take multiple requests, take all the requests, guys. Come on. Spring Boot MVC application, it is automatically registered with what? Servlet container having URL pattern slash and having load and startup enabling to take all the requests. This is for what? Taking all the requests. Education, it is automatically registered with what? Servlet container having URL pattern. Okay, having load on startup enabling to take all the requests. This is there or not there? Super, guys. Tell me, boss. On the deployment of Spring MVC, Boot MVC application, the following operation takes place automatically. So one thing is clear, dispatch servlet front controller, it is having ready-made logics, okay. Then related jobs will come once we add the starter. Okay, in Spring MVC, this servlet should be configured explicitly in web.xml, having some URL pattern. In Spring Boot MVC, that is not required. It is automatically registered with what? Slash URL pattern. Yes, now boss? Okay, now listen carefully. On the deployment of Spring Boot MVC web application, number one, dispatcher servlet is already configured with the slash URL pattern, also enabling load on startup. What do you mean by also enabling load on startup, guys? Array, whether you give request or not, dispatcher servlet class object will be created during server startup or on the deployment of the web application. Whatever happens first. Server is already started, you are deploying. During the deployment only, dispatcher servlet class object is created. Server not started, you deployed. The moment you start the server, dispatcher servlet class object will be created. Load on startup on servlet is nothing but eager instantiation of the servlet. Generally, until it gets the request, no object for servlet will be created. But whether request comes or not, application utilization starts or not, either during server startup or during the deployment of application itself, object is created. What is created? That is nothing but what, guys? Init method of dispatcher servlet executes automatically. Super. Number three, inside that init method, logic is there to create IOC container of type application context. Of type logic, we don't create in Spring Boot MVC application or MVC application, we don't create container. We use the container that is given by whom? Dispatcher servlet. Is it not interesting, Rababu? Guys, am I audible? I think net to signal also reduced. Online team, I think online team is not. Signal dropped. Let the signal come, Babu. Wait. Okay, na? Right. Now listen carefully. I think signal is back now. All clear now? Yeah, everyone please come back. Number one, I deployed the web application. Number two, because of load on startup that is enabled on what? Dispatcher servlet. Servlet container creates servlet class object. Servlet class objects are created by servlet container. Spring Bean objects are created by Spring container. Don't mix up. Okay? Right. But the interesting is in the init method of dispatcher servlet that executes automatically because of object creation, logic is there to create IOC container. Logic is there to create IOC container. Superna boss. This IOC container, whatever that is created, goes for pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Beans and also complete injection among those Spring Beans. There will be other beans in your project, na? Service class, DAO, if not DAO, repository, right? Okay, controllers or handler classes, they will be pre-instantiated and they will be injected with each other according to the @auto void we place. Yes or no, na boss? And what is the good part you tell me? Sir, object creation, its initialization, IOC container creation, okay, Spring Beans instantiation, singleton scope, and their injection all happened during the deployment of the web application. That means before giving first request only all objects are ready. So when first request come, they need not to spend time for what? Object creation and loading of classes. సింగిల్ ఉంది, ఇది అస్సలు రావట్లా, ఇది కూడా ప్రాబ్లం. అదే మధ్య మధ్యలో బ్రేక్ అవుతుంది. అంటే ఇది సిగ్నల్ డ్రాప్ అవ్వగానే ఇది కనెక్ట్ అయిపోతుంది. ఓకే గైస్, ఐ హోప్ థింగ్స్ ఆర్ గుడ్. నౌ థింగ్స్ ఆర్ గుడ్ ఇట్ సీమ్స్. One time router restart has solved the problem. Okay, now listen, I repeat the things again. The people who missed the discussion from last 3-4 minutes, nothing to worry. I am repeating. On the deployment of Spring Boot MVC application, number one, servlet container create dispatcher servlet class object because load on startup is internally enabled on that servlet. That's the number one point to understand. Number two, in that process, init method of dispatcher servlet executes. Inside that init method, logic is there to create IOC container. Super. This IOC container, what it will do, guys? This IOC container actually creates the object for, come on guys, singleton scope, instantiate all the singleton scope Spring Beans like service DO, other helper component. Injection will happen. All those objects will be kept in what? Internal cache. Due to this, what's happening? All major objects of application execution are instantiated and injected during server startup or during the deployment of the web application. So that when I give my first request or next request, before that only all objects are ready for utilization or not. Before that only all objects are ready to utilize or not, guys. Say something, my dear, I want reply, boss. Right, let's see. On the deployment of Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC application, the following operations takes place on dispatcher servlet. A, because of load on startup that is enabled, the servlet dispatcher servlet class object either on deployment of web application for hot deployment or during the server startup cold deployment. What is deployment? Like hot. When server is in running mode, if you deploy the application, hot. Things are hot. Server is in stopped mode, you deploy it, later server will be started. That is called cold deployment. Okay. The init method of dispatcher servlet executes, which internally creates IOC container of type web application context, nothing but application context. This web application context container performs what? Pre-instantiation of singleton scope Spring Bean like controller or handler classes, service classes, DAO classes, data sources. Handler mapping will come in future. View resolver to decide the view component, okay, etc. And performs what? Necessary dependency injection. Keeps them in internal cache of what? IOC container. This process keeps all objects ready in the deployment itself. In the deployment of web application itself, all objects are ready now, boss. Only standalone application contains main method. In all standalone application, we create IOC container in the main method. Web application does not contain main method. The dispatcher servlet take care of what? Creating IOC container in those web application. This is also clear. So far, knowingly, unknowingly, what we have developed are what? Standalone applications, right? What we are planning to develop in future are what? Web application. Super. In Spring MVC application, dispatcher servlet view components are taken care by whom? Servlet JSP containers. Whereas controller, handler classes, service classes, DAO classes are handler mapping, view resolver and etc. Java classes are acting as what? Spring beans, who will be taken care by what? Dispatcher servlet created IOC container. Simple reason. Servlet JSP components are managed by servlet JSP container, which are part of web server or application server. But when it comes to Spring Bean, IOC container is created by dispatcher servlet, na? So dispatcher servlet created IOC container will take care of what, guys? Dispatcher servlet created IOC container will take care of what, guys? I want reply, my dear. Spring Beans and their dependency management. So that means when you deploy Spring Boot or Spring MVC application in web server supplied servlet JSP container will manage servlet JSP component. The dispatcher servlet created IOC container will manage what? Spring Beans and their dependency management. Note, dispatcher servlet uses handler mapping component as the helper component to pick up the right handler class or control class for request processing. Because I used handler mapping and view resolver, two names, guys. Okay, dispatcher servlet is ready-made, na? Can we modify the code of ready-made servlet? No. That's why whenever it traps and takes a request, it will hand over the request to handler mapping to decide this which request should go to which handler class, which request should go to which. That's a helper component for dispatcher servlet. What is that? Handler mapping. Handler mapping is there to map right request to right handler class, as the name says, it's right. Okay. Then we have a view resolver. Once request processing is done, control came back to dispatcher servlet having results. Okay, this result should go to right view component. The result has to be formatted and processed. Dispatcher servlet takes the support of view resolver. Resolving means identifying. View resolver means view is resolved. View is identified, right, boss? View is resolved. That means view is identified. View is resolved. Nothing but view is identified. Dispatcher servlet uses view resolver component as the helper component to pick the right view component for formatting the results. To pick the right view component for what? Formatting results. Are you getting my point there or not? Come on. Super, guys. Right. Okay. All web application must be deployed in web server or application server like Tomcat, WebLogic, Wildfly and etc. to make them accessible for what? 24/7. To make them accessible for what, guys? Are you getting my point, this guys? Come on, everyone. Web server or application server listens to client request continuously, takes the request, maps the request to the web components of web application, executes what? Web components dynamically, gathers the result and sends them to browser. Already I talked about web server, Babu. Understanding my statement? So final conclusion is what, guys? I introduced two important names. One is handler mapping, other one is view resolver with respect to dispatcher servlet activity. Service DAO data sources are regular one. Handler class also regular one. All are Java classes. Handler mapping is responsible to take the request from dispatcher servlet to map to write handler class. It helps dispatcher servlet in navigation management. View resolver is responsible to take request or result based request from dispatcher servlet to map with what certain correct view component. So it also helps dispatcher servlet in what view management. What management, guys? Look at the diagram, guys. It's a web server or application server. This is Spring MVC web application. Come on. This is dispatcher servlet. This is dispatcher servlet created IOC container. In this entire web application, this dispatcher servlet JSPs are managed by servlet JSP containers, right? And handler mapping, view resolver, DAO, service controller. All these are what? Spring Bean. That's why managed by whom? IOC container. Look at the dotted arrows. Dispatcher servlet, two JSPs are linked with what? JSP servlet container, right? Yes or no? Na? Come on. Next. Dispatcher servlet managed IOC container is managing what? DAO service controller, handler mapping and view resolver components. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on, everyone. Come on, everyone. I want reply from you people, guys. Come on. Servlet container is managing dispatcher servlet. Yes. Dispatch servlet creates the IOC container. That means servlet container is managing the IOC container indirectly. The dispatcher servlet created IOC container manages what? Spring Beans like handler classes, service classes, DAO class and etc. JSP container which internally uses servlet container will manage the execution of what? JSP components. Are you getting my point? So web container is equal to servlet container plus JSP container. Some people don't use servlet JSP container terminology separately. They use the wording called what? Web container. Web container is equal to servlet container plus JSP container. Application server is equal to web server plus plus. Application server is equal to web server plus plus. How many ways are there to configure or map servlet component with what? Servlet container. Three approaches are there. How to configure servlet component with servlet container. Number one, declarative approach. In web.xml we use servlet and servlet mapping tags na boss. Annotation approach. On the top of the servlet class we write @web servlet na boss. Programmatic approach or dynamic servlet registration. In servlet context object, there is a method called add servlet. Like that also we can register servlet with servlet container. Sir, I have a question. First approach, second approach is easy. Then why third approach programmatic? That too, in the Java code you are registering, boss. Listen. Servlet is user defined. I can happily go for annotation approach @web servlet. Why? It's a user defined. I can open the code and I can add it. Servlet is predefined. Yes. Can we edit and add @web servlet on the top of the servlet? Either they should give. If they are not giving, okay, we should configure through web.xml file. Come on, boss. But my question is, in Spring Boot MVC application, are we entertaining XML? In fact, in web.xml, we are not entertaining XML. So then we have to think about, can we think about working with annotation? No. It's a ready-made servlet. Dispatch servlet is ready-made. Can we edit and add @web servlet on the top of dispatcher servlet? No. Can we entertain web.xml configuration? No. But Spring Boot people should automatically register dispatcher servlet with the servlet container or not. So they are internally using which approach? Programmatic approach. What is that approach? SC dot add servlet method they are using. What method? SC. SC is nothing but servlet context, guys. Using add servlet method of what? Servlet context object. Using add servlet method of what, guys? Servlet context object. I hope you convinced with me, guys. Come on. Spring Boot MVC uses approach 3 to register dispatcher servlet with the servlet container having URL pattern slash. It uses what approach, guys? Approach 3. Approach 3. Spring Boot MVC does not use web.xml entries to configure dispatcher servlet and annotation approach to configure dispatcher servlet. They can use annotation servlet with a ready-made annotation. What the problem, you know? They have developed dispatcher servlet to be used in what? Spring MVC and Spring Boot MVC. In Spring MVC, people may want to go for XML driven configuration. That time they want to configure dispatcher servlet through XML entries. If they add annotation, that will be wasted or not, guys. That's why they have given ready-made servlet without any configuration, boss. And moreover, situation to situation, we may want to change the URL pattern. That's why they have not given dispatcher servlet having any configuration. But in Spring Boot, we expect everything should happen automatically. Common things should happen automatically. They cannot apply annotation because it's a predefined servlet already not there. They cannot go to web.xml. They don't want to entertain XML. That's why they have taken approach number 3 to register servlet with what? In programmatic approach or not, guys? To register servlet in programmatic approach, don't worry. I have one video. I used to share that video. Actually, it's that third approach based example is what? Discussion of advanced Java. When I used to conduct advanced Java session, I used to take that session as a separate session. Now I prepared video I'm sharing with you. Because we all know how to configure servlet through annotation. We all know how to configure servlet through web.xml. But do you know how to configure servlet through programmatic approach? No. I'm saying now, but that is internal, we need not to bother. But you'll be having curiosity, na? If I have my own servlet, how to configure in what? Approach number 3. What approach number 3, guys? Right. Approach number 3, guys. In servlet, there is no provision like @bean methods kind of thing. @bean methods kind of thing is not there. Okay, so you have to do manually only. That is what? Programmatic approach. I'll give the video, then you, after seeing the entire video, you observe in servlet, for dispatcher servlet also same thing is happening internally. That's why dispatcher servlet is automatically configured with the servlet container having which URL pattern? /URL pattern. Simply having which URL pattern, guys? /URL pattern. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Shall we go for next level discussion, guys? Come on, everyone. Shall we go for next level discussion? I want reply from you people, right? Yes. So now, I think we understood what happens during the deployment of the web application. Last time I'm telling this has to be in your brain, boss. If this is not there in brain, we cannot go further. Number 1, we deploy the web application. Number 2, because of load on startup enabled on dispatcher servlet container create dispatcher servlet object. In that process, init method of dispatcher servlet execute. In that process, init method creates IOC container of type application context. In this IOC container looks for singleton scope Spring Bean, perform pre-instantiation. The same container perform injection among the Spring Beans. The same container keeps those objects in what? Internal cache of IOC container. What's the beauty of this whole process? All important objects are ready during the deployment of web application. We need not to arrange them separately. We need not to arrange them separately. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on. Super, guys. Before arrival of any request, things are done automatically. Okay, boss? File, open, class content. Here is what? Spring. Here is what? Spring. Later, what is there, guys? 1102. Where is this? 1102. After that, what next? What is there, guys? Spring Boot MVC. 1102 Spring Boot MVC. Here is my what, guys? 26th document. Save this. Okay. Very, very popular interview question. Explain Spring Boot MVC flow or Spring MVC flow. Same for both. In Spring Boot MVC, so many things happens internally. In Spring MVC, few things should be configured manual. But one thing you remember, guys, entire Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC is designed around dispatcher servlet. Every activity will happen under control and monitoring of what? Dispatcher servlet. No second thought in that. Spring MVC or Spring Boot MVC flow, guys. Spring Boot MVC is equal to Spring MVC plus plus. That's good. Spring MVC, Spring Boot MVC is designed around a predefined front controller servlet called dispatcher servlet. That means all operations and flows in the web application takes place under the control of what? Dispatcher servlet. Under the control of what, guys? Dispatcher servlet. Everyone getting my point there, guys? Come on. The main components of Spring MVC or Spring Boot MVC application are: number one, dispatcher servlet. Okay, front controller. Handler or handler controller classes. After taking request, the request will be delegated to handler class, also called as controller. Sometime it will directly process the request. Sometime it will take the support of what? Service DAO classes to process the request. Java classes having request delegation logics to service DAO classes. It gets the request from dispatch servlet, either directly process or delegates to service. But industry standard is what? Directly processing or delegating to server. Delegating means processing. Don't think much. Don't apply big meanings. Handler mappings. There are so many handler classes. One dispatcher servlet. It traps all the requests. It is a ready-made one. Handler class are user-defined one. There should be one intelligent fellow to map right request trapped by dispatcher servlet with right handler class. That intelligent fellow bridge is nothing but what? Handler mapping. That's another component. Okay, boss. Next, view components. Okay, result given, results request processing done, result generated that came to what? Dispatcher servlet, right? Dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet passes that one to view components or not, guys? Dispatcher servlet passes that one to view components or not? I want reply, guys. Tell me, boss, what is that? The output generated by these view components should be, I'm sorry, the result came to dispatcher servlet should go to right view component, though there are multiple view component. So for that purpose, dispatcher servlet takes the support of what, guys? View resolver. These are the main component. Number one, dispatcher servlet. Number two, handler class, either to directly process the request or to delegate the request to service DAO. Number three, handler mapping component. What is the purpose of this, guys? To map the right request with the right handler class. View component to take the result and to format the result. View resolver to map right result processing with the right view component. Right result processing with what? Right view component. That's good. Handler mapping is helper component that identifies correct handler or controller classes to handle the request wrapped by dispatcher servlet. View resolver is helper component that resolves or identify correct physical view component. That means JSP files. Physical means .jsp file, .html file, .angular files, whatever it is. Name and location to format the results by executing what logic, guys? Presentation logic. By simply executing what logic, guys? Presentation. Conclusion. To send DS wrapped request to appropriate handler method of handler class. Inside the handler class where logic is placed to process the request is called handler method. Handler class contains handler method. We need the support of what? Handler mapping component. To send and format the handler method generated or gathered results by identifying appropriate physical view component like JSP, we need view resolver component. We definitely need what component, guys? We definitely need what component, guys? View resolver comp. How does a typical controller looks, guys? Public class my controller annotated with what? At the rate controller, nothing but handler, right? Okay, how does handler method looks, guys? Some method, some logic, but on the top of the method, we keep request path. At the rate request mapping, welcome. Why? In one class, 10 handler methods have come. Which request should go to which handler method will be decided by handler method request path or not. In the incoming request URL, lastly welcome is there. It will go to that handler method whose request path is what? Welcome. In the incoming request URL, lastly ABC is there. It will try to go to that handler method of handler class whose request path is what? /ABC. In the incoming request URL, lastly XYZ is there. It will try to map the request with that handler method whose request path is what? /ABC. Convinced or not? Convinced or not, my dear? I want reply from you people. Come on, my dear. Super, guys. Everyone understanding my statement, guys? Come on. Number one. What is number one, guys? Programmer deploys. What, guys? Number one. Programmer deploys Spring Boot MVC web application. In that process, pre-instantiation of dispatcher servlet. Next. IOC container creation, singleton scopes beans instantiation, injection, keeping them in internal cache. Yes, boss, happens or not happens, sir? Right, all these things are happening. Okay, number one, that is. Number two. Okay, number one, deployment. Number two, all these activities. Number two, all these activities on front controller dispatcher servlet. Number three, what is this? Browser generates a request to web application. Some path I am assuming info is there. At the end, what is there? Info. Okay. See, dispatch servlet URL pattern is what? Slash. It will trap and take the request now, boss? Yes or no? Applies all common system services now, boss? Super. Number five, dispatcher servlet handovers the request to handler mapping, having request URI and path. Having request URL and path. URL itself having path, guys. But it handler mapping will take last word in the URL. What is that? Info. Searches in all the controller classes of the project. Not in one controller. Searches in all the controller classes of the project. See, flow should be there in your blood, not in the brain. Feel it, feel it. Okay, na? Because in brain may be off sometime, but blood never stops running, right? Okay. Tell me, without asking this question, your interview never ends. If you answer this question very confidently, no next question on the MVC. They will go to other topic. If you don't answer confidently, there will be lot of questions in MVC. You want one question from MVC or lot of question? That depends upon how confidently you are answering this. Okay. Now tell me now. Everyone focus. Handovers the request to handler mapping. Having request path and URI. What handler mapping will do? It internally uses lot of reflection API, searches in all the controller classes and looks for, is there any handler method in controller classes whose request path is info? Found na? Found or not? It won't call directly. First it will gather that handler method signature and that controller class bean ID and passes them to dispatcher servlet. Interesting or not? Controller class bean ID, handler method signatures to DS. Dispatcher servlet gets them or not? Dispatcher servlet gets them or not? Come on. Are you getting my point, guys? Is that clear, guys? Super. Now, number 8. Dispatcher servlet submits the bean ID, gets the controller class object from IOC container. Don't forget, dispatch servlet is already having IOC container that is created internally. To that container, I can submit received bean ID of the controller class. I can get controller class object and I already got the signature of the handler method. So you on that controller class object, I can call what? Handler method or not? I can definitely call handler method or not, guys? Handler method is called. Called or not called, guys? Called or not called, guys? Okay, that's good. That's great. So full final conclusion is what, guys? Controller class handler method is called. So this logic executes na, boss? What is that logic? Either it directly processes the request or takes the support of what? Service DAO, other things to process the request. Some result will come na? That result it will try to keep in a scope. Either as model attribute, it will try to keep in a scope. Request scope or session scope or generally request scope. Why? Request to request inputs will change. Along with that, results also will change. Right now, boss? Generated result, it will try to keep in what? Scope. Keeps the generated or gathered result in what? Request scope. As what attribute? Model attribute. Simply as what attribute, guys? Model attribute. This is done, my dear? Yes or no? Definitely done. Now, what is number 10, guys? What is number 10, guys? I want reply. Okay, now listen. It actually should send view component name. To process the result generated by me, use so and so view component. But interestingly, it will not send view component real name. It will send one logical name. Token kind of thing. Those tokens are linked with what? Real file name somewhere in property file or XML file. No, XML is outdated, only property file. Okay, by going to that file, it gets the real file name. Dispatcher servlet communicates with that view component. This is the actual planning. Sir, why this is done, sir? They can directly give the file name. Now, if this controller has to give file name, controller has to be hard coded or not. Inside the controller class, JSP file name, view component file name should be hard coded or not. Tomorrow file name change, technology change, location changed, problem or not, guys. That's why what they are sending, token, nothing but logical view name. I'm calling it as what? LVN, logical view name, pointing to view component internally. Super, guys, that is 10. Dispatcher servlet submits this logical view name. Dispatcher servlet submits this logical view name to what, guys? View resolver. Submits this logical view name to whom, guys? Dispatcher servlet submits this logical view name to whom, guys? I want reply from you people. Come on, guys, everyone. Submits this logical view name to whom, guys? Okay. View resolver will have touch with what? Connection with property file. It submits the logical view name there. Somehow it gets what? Physical view name. That means real JSP file name. And it gives that one to dispatcher servlet or not, guys. So view resolver is executing view component or identifying the view component. By talking to property file or some other thing, it submits the logical view name there, gets the real view component name, and the real view component name goes back to dispatcher servlet or not? Goes back to dispatcher servlet or not? I want reply, my dear. Got the point, my dear. I want reply from you people, everyone. Okay, that's good. Dispatcher servlet passes logical view name to view resolver. What, guys? Logical view name to view resolver. And view resolver submit the logical view name somewhere, gets the physical view component name and location that will be passed to dispatcher servlet. Because of this, loose coupling is coming or not? Suppose tomorrow I changed the technology from JSP to Angular, Angular to React JS, JSP to HTML. So I need to touch property file only, na? Is there any need of touching source code of controller class? That's a real magic with what? Working with logical view names, tokens, not the real values. Come on. Okay, now dispatch servlet is having whom, guys? Physical view component name and location. Physical view component name and location. Understanding my statement, boss? Super. Dispatcher servlet communicates with what, guys? Physical view component name and location. Communicates real one. There it executes the presentation logic. Somehow it will access the scoped data because already we kept the results in scope, na request scope. And this JSP also uses same request object, right? Because we're still processing the same request. We're still processing the same request. Don't forget that, right? So the request from scope review gather the results, formatted the results. Come on, my dear. Formatted results output goes to dispatcher servlet. That is number 14. What dispatcher servlet will do? Sends these formatted results based output to browser simply as response or not, guys. Number 16, browser receives that response and it displays it as a web page or not, guys. Simply displays it as a web page or not, guys. Are you getting my point? Understanding my statement, guys? Got the clarity, my dear? Since I prepared a lot of background, Spring MVC flow is difficult or easier? Difficult or easier? One more time I will explain. Then I will give time to look at the numbers, visualize your own flow. If you stuck up anywhere, let me know. We will stress that point. But first, number one, programmer deploys Spring MVC application. Spring Boot MVC application in web server. Number two, during the deployment of web application, lot of initialization, initialization activities takes place. In that one, number one, pre-instantiation of dispatcher servlet takes place. In that process, init method execute. In that process, IOC container created. In that process, pre-instantiation of singleton scope bins takes place, like service DAO, handler classes, view resolvers, and what? Handler mapping. All are Spring Beans only internally. Okay. Next, they injected among themselves. They kept an internal cache of IOC containers. So two is completed. Third, browser gives the request. Since the dispatcher servlet URL pattern is / traps and takes the request, applies the common system services. 5. Handovers the request to handler map. It's a default activity, natural activity. Handler mapping, number 6. Number 6, handler mapping internally uses reflection API and searches in all the @controller classes for the handler method whose request path is matching with the incoming request URL path. Incoming request URL path. Matching or not matching? Matching or not matching? Okay, nice guys. Definitely matching, guys. I want reply from you people. Come on, guys. Definitely matching or not matching? Okay. It's matching. Okay. Once matched, what happens, guys? Once matched, what happens, guys? Once matching, what happens, guys? Okay. Once matched, that method signature is gathered, that controller class bean ID is gathered. Gathered or not gathered? Gathered or not gathered? Okay, guys. Pass it to this handler mapping passes that information to dispatch. Dispatcher servlet submits the received bean ID to IOC container. Gets the controller class object. On that object, based on the received signature, calls the handler method. Because of that, handler class handler method executes. Calling method is 8. Executing method is 9. What is 9? Executes the method to process the request either directly or by taking the support of service DAO. By taking the support of service DAO class. Whatever result generated, that result will be kept in what? Request scope. That result will be kept in what? Request scope. Clear, my dear? Got the point, my dear? Come on. Super. Number 10. Controller class returns logical view name back to dispatcher server. Logical view name back to dispatcher server. Yes or no, na, guys? Back to dispatcher servlet. Are you getting my point there? Okay, that is number 10. Okay, number 11. Dispatcher servlet gives that logical view name to whom? View resolver. What resolver? View. Okay. View resolver gives that logical view name to other places, like property file or some other thing. Gets the real physical view component name and location. And that information is given to dispatcher servlet or not. See guys, everything is happening with communication with the dispatcher servlet only. Can I say Spring Boot MVC flow is designed around the dispatcher servlet, boss? Spring Boot MVC flow is designed around the dispatcher servlet, na boss? That is a ready-made servlet. That means major headache gone, na? Which is doing more work is a ready-made one. Only helper components we are keeping. Okay, in this diagram, I'll tell. Okay, now tell me, dispatch servlet goes to that location, executes the view component, formats the result. That is number 15, 13. 13. So number 14, dispatch servlet gathers formatted results from view component. Number 15, dispatcher servlet sends those formatted results to what? Browser. Number 16, okay, browser displays that formatted results in the form of web page. Flow is fixed, guys. You can add more handler classes, more view component as per the need. Even though these many are there, what are the user defined things you know? Controller classes, physical view component. These are the programmable developed user defined thing. Luckily we have multiple ready-made view resolvers are there, multiple ready-made handler mappings are there. We can use anything of our choice, boss. Generally we don't get the need of developing custom view resolver, custom handler mapping component. All of them can be managed with what? Predefined things. All of them can be managed with what? Predefined things. Convinced with me, guys? Got the clarity, my dear? I want reply, guys. Come on. Everyone, I want reply from you people. Come on, guys. Handler mapping does not execute the handler method of handler class, but it helps dispatcher servlet to find or identify right handler method of handler class to process the request. Similarly, view resolver does not execute the view component. View resolver helps dispatcher servlet to resolve or identify right view component name and location against the logical view name that it is receiving. Against the logical view name that it is receiving. Okay, guys. Nothing is there here, my dear. View resolver does not execute the view component. It just helps the dispatcher servlet in the identification of what? View component like JSP file. Logical view name. Okay. What is logical view name, guys? It is the token given to view resolver component through dispatcher servlet, based on which the name and location of physical view component will be decided. The name and location of physical view component will be decided. Are you understanding my statement, guys? Right. Everyone, guys, I want reply, my dear. Come on. Super, guys. Everyone, I want reply from you people. These are the flow of execution related all the components or not? I don't want to read one by one. Whatever I have explained, same thing will be there in the steps also. But now tell me, everyone, please spend some time on this diagram. Okay, I want everyone to spend 4-5 minutes on this diagram. Each number, my explanation in your mind. Each number, explanation. Something not striking, write that number on the paper. When I explain next time, try to understand what that number is. When interviewer asks flow, don't explain orally. First draw the diagram. No need of filling up all the internal details, guys. Keep the boxes. Just write the main name. Dispatcher, servlet, handler mapping, controller class. If you want, you can go controller class. You can have one handler method. The only main names you write, no need of writing remaining kachra. That is kept only for your understanding. Okay, right? Just keep the numbers. First keep the number, start explaining the things. Especially stress on second number. Lots of people start their flow, browser gives the request, but only our student starts the flow with what? Deployment and deployment related activities. Yes or no? Na? That means they give lot of abstract picture. They say dispatcher servlet calls handler method, but on the controller class object. But no one will have clarity how controller class object came all of a sudden. It is collected from the IOC container that is created and managed by what? Dispatcher servlet. All are interlinked now. Anywhere are you losing the link? Why logical view name is sent? Why not physical view component sent? Convinced or not? If I start sending physical JSP file name, Angular file name from controller class, in controller class I have to hard code it. Tomorrow name change, technology change, location change. I have to disturb the code. Now what I do? Logical view name X is equal to abc.jsp where I kept in property file, somewhere that meaning kind of thing. So though I have written logical view name X, view resolver will get the abc.jsp name and location, gives to dispatcher servlet, dispatcher servlet executes that. That's it. Yeah, everyone please visualize numbers. Number one, clear. Number two, deployment activities are clear. If not clear, raise your hand. If not clear, raise your hand, right? No, don't tell your opinion. I just want clear, not clear. No other thing. Online student, please respond. Oh, responding, but I have not. No emojis. Respond in the chat box only. Right. Now, number three, browser gives the request having some URL. Maybe by clicking hyperlink, by clicking submit button, or by typing URL in the address bar, whatever it is. Is that clear or not? If this is not clear, jump into the drainage. Browser giving request also not clear means waste of time. Yes or no? Number four, dispatcher servlet traps the request, applies common system services. Perfect. Number five, clear. What is that? Dispatcher servlet handovers the request to handler mapping. Number six, first you visualize. Clear? Yeah. This handler mapping component internally uses reflection API to search in all the @controller classes to invoke the handler method. Whose request path is matching with the incoming request path. Incoming request path. Are you getting my point there, guys? Come on. Okay, that's good. Incoming request path, guys. That is number 6. Number 7. Sir, one by one, sir. Dispatcher servlet after that. What do you mean by that? No, yeah. First, one by one, don't be advanced. Number 7. Dispatcher servlet gathers handler method signature. Ah, signature and controller class B9. That is number 7. And gives to dispatcher servlet. Who gets us? Handler mapping. Number 8. Dispatcher servlet submits that bin ID to IOC container that it is managing, gets the controller class object, on that object based on the signature it received, calls the handler method. That is number 8. Number 9, are you able to visualize? First visualize in mind. What is that? Either handler method of handler class either directly process the request or takes the support of DAO service classes to process the request. Whatever gathered request or generated result, it will place in what? Scope. Mostly request scope. Why? When inputs are changing time to time, output may also change time to time. A request is specific to each request or not, guys? Number 10. Handler method returns logical view name, nothing but token to dispatcher servlet. This is interesting, right? It is not returning physical view component name. It is returning logical. Number 11. Dispatcher servlet gives logical view name to view resolve. View resolver submits that logical view name somewhere, nothing but property file or somewhere else. Gets the name and location of the physical view component. Name and location of the physical view component. Yes, na boss? That is number 12. Yes or no, na guys? Okay. Number 13. Number 13. Dispatcher servlet passes. Dispatcher servlet execute physical view component. That is 13. Number 14. Okay, guys. Number 13. Number 14 is what, guys? Formatted results back to dispatcher servlet. Number 15. That formatted results goes to whom? Browser as response. Number 16. Executes the dynamic web page. Displays as response as what? Dynamic web page. Clear, my dear? Come on. Super. All these steps are clearly explained here or not? Okay. Now, I'm giving one task to you people, guys. The task is, I'm giving task to you people. The task is very simple and straightforward. That is, record your voice on MVC flow and send me. But you should not read out these steps, guys, while recording the voice. You should have only diagram in front of you and you should record the voice and send to me, right? That property file is application.properties. Yes. View resolver uses application.properties. Yes, that's right. Tell me, if someone says MVC flow is difficult, are you going to agree that? Tell them, array, your fundamentals are weak, that's why you are saying difficult. Is it really difficult, guys? Nicely easy, na? Very simple. Deployment activity, giving request, trapping request, handler mapping, handler method signature, controller class object is gathered, handler method called, request process, result kept in scope, logical view name to DS, DS passes logical view name to view resolver, view resolver gets physical view component, name and location to DS, DS executes that physical view component, their results are formatted, come on. Formatted results comes to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlets what? Generates the response having those results. Next number, last. Browser receives that response, displays it as a web page. See, I can explain for half an hour, I can explain for 1 minute also. But basic point should be there in your brain. Don't mug up, feel the flow. And at midnight, 2 o'clock, someone wakes you up and asks flow. You should tell. It should resist in your brain. And you never forget also. While developing each application, we remember the flow, we recollect the flow, accordingly only we develop the application. Okay, last discussion, guys. In this whole thing, dispatchers are like ready-made, handler mapping ready-made, view resolver ready-made. Only controller classes and view component we have to develop. Why don't we develop? Definitely we develop. Yes, no boss. Why don't we develop? Definitely we develop, guys. Is it not interesting, Babu? Come on. Super. Okay, that's good. Can we start uploading the notes, guys? Yeah, I have to give one video also, right, boss? Please send our Spring Boot question. Akash, at the end of every module, I am giving queries. Huh? Akash, at least you know what's happening in the classes, Babu. Every topic, if any important things are there, I am writing questions, right? Few topics I am starting as a questionnaire only, right, boss? Please send Spring Hour means and okay, Spring Boot questions. Fine. Akash, I will send the question. Okay, what you will do with them? Akash is my friend. Okay. Akash, your friend? Okay. Ask your friend to attend classes regularly. Ask him to observe what's happening in the classes. I think yesterday, at the end of core module questions are given. Maybe at the end of each topic given or not given. Ah. Please, and don't prepare question. If you prepare question, you never clear interview. I already said many times. Interviewer never comes to interview cabin with a ready-made question paper. Your first question answer is based for, second question answer is based for only few standard questions. Remaining all are this one. See guys, I am ready to take all the batches. 1 2 free slots also I have given. Okay. So giving batch, not giving batch is up to them. If you want my sessions, talk to office people. That's it. From my side, no issues to take the classes. Okay. That's it. I don't know what strategy they are applying. Okay. But from my side, no issues are there. If any of your juniors ask, Natras sir takes classes or not, I am definitely ready to take. Right? Fine. Thank you. Yeah. Next one. Where is this, guys? Not your one. Yeah. Where is this? Okay. Yeah. Programmatic approach video link also I will give. Let me magnify it. Then let me magnify it. 16:8. Tell me, boss. Spring Boot MVC. Done. Spring Boot MVC. Let me close this, guys. Yeah. Today's document is another document we have. Yes. Class content. Where is this? Spring. Next. What is there? 1102. Tell me. Spring Boot MVC 26th. 26th, guys. That's good. Okay. 26th. SK, I am ready to start all the batches. Please put your request in front office or ask your admin, respective admin. Microservice flow is same. No, microservice is different from this. Microservice is a different ball game, guys. Right. Okay. Let it be, boss. Tell me next one. Where is next document we have to worry about? 11 o'clock, 16:08 only. Next one. Common videos or common videos and docs. Here is there. I have to give one document. What is that? I have to give one document. What is that, guys? Video URLs. Video URLs. Model 1, even model 1, model 2, both are monolithic only. Microservice architecture is different. Anything, all where all services are packing into single unit, that is called monolithic. Using model 1 monolithic, using model 2 monolithic. And we can use MVC architecture in monolithic architecture and microservice architecture. MVC architecture can be used in both architectures, guys. Yeah, I am looking for what? Dynamic. What is that, guys? Dynamic servlet registration. What is that? Dynamic servlet registration. Yeah. Yes. I have got one message like AOP, aspect oriented programming. Listen. AOP is all there to add functional features to the project. Performance test, security, this kind of functional features. Long back AOP is great. Why? Because we used to develop those functional features manually. After arrival of Spring Boot actuators, what, guys? 15 plus functional features are ready-madely available. Security kind of thing, we have a separate module for it. Performance monitoring, separate ready-made actuator is there. That's why after that there is no significance for what? Learning AOP and developing what? Non-functional features manually. Non-functional features means what? Performance monitoring, logging, auditing, this kind of non-functional thread info, heap info, this kind of thing. That's why I don't run after AOP. But I know your psychological feeling. Earlier it was top popular topic. Interviewer may ask. Generally not asking, guys. If ask also, you should show maturity of what? So nowadays we are not working with AOP. We are started dealing with what? Spring Boot actuators. No sir, interviewer is not convinced. Don't worry. I already prepared. Whatever in transition, I prepared videos, I kept them ready so that you can use the videos, and if you want prepare, you can use the videos. Otherwise, you have always answer to tell. I never dealt with AOP. I always worked with what? Actuators. Yes, na boss? That's it. Because we have to learn new things that are in the industry, not the old thing. But interviewers may be interested in old aspects in the maintenance project. That's why I'm going to give video recordings of what? AOP. And we are going to spend more time on what? Actuators. Actuators are ready-made AOP components, we can say. In AOP, everything is user defined, but these are ready-made AOP components. Okay, that's why AOP sounds great, looks great, but not popular now. So if anyone is crazy about AOP, don't worry. At the end of the batch or in the middle, I will give some videos on it. Go through it. Okay. Go through it. Very small, 4 or 5 videos, not a big topic also. Where is, but you will only see what is this or in actuator, everything coming ready-made. Here, everything we are developing manually. You never like that. Especially after seeing actuator, you never enjoy AOP. But psychological feeling will be there, I know that. Yeah, dynamic registration of servlet, guys, that's good. Here is my what? Dynamic registration of servlet. Here is my dynamic registration of servlet. Okay, here is the document boss. Okay, paste it. Right, guys? Right. Fine, boss. So this is about what? Spring MVC introduction, right? So tomorrow onwards, we will take a sample code. What code? Code based flow we see. Today diagram based flow na. I'll develop sample controller class, sample view component. I will configure sample predefined handler mapping, sample predefined view resolver. One will assume one dispatch servlet is also there. We'll try to see code based flow. When all are developed, how these codes are interlinked. That is what we are going to talk tomorrow. Don't miss until I say two or three web applications are developed by using what? Spring Boot MVC. Every class is important until I complete first two, three applications. Clear? Someone asked actuators. Actuators also part of the syllabus. Once we complete a REST module, Spring Boot REST module, we get into that. We definitely get into that. It's not like that. Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a nice time. We'll meet tomorrow and we learn much about this stuff. Thank you. Have a nice